Okay, I see all of our members are present. We went from no quorum to full quorum in 2 minutes. 6:02, calling the meeting to order. Not too packed tonight. We should be able to get through this before dark. So we need to approve the agenda. So you see here, Mr. Clerk, were there any changes to the agenda? No? Nope. Okay. So does anyone on the committee wish to propose any changes to the agenda as printed? There's essentially 2 business items. No? So approved, need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Schell, seconded by Councillor Hutchison. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now the minutes from June 14th have been distributed. Does anyone have any errors or omissions? I guess we need to move and second it first, right? Yeah. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Schell. Any errors or omissions? I guess not, so we will approve the minutes. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Delegations, I believe there's none.
Correct.
And no briefings.
Correct.
We're so lucky. Tomorrow we have 6 briefings at Heritage. Business 7A. 7A, a bylaw to amend bylaw 2005-260, a bylaw regarding the levying of special rates and the charging of fees for waste management services. And there was a report, and I believe we've got some staff here to perhaps tell us about this. Mr. Keach.
Thank you. With both the reports, Ms. Roberts is going to do a brief verbal description beforehand, so I will turn it over to the expert here.
Okay, Ms. Roberts.
Through you. This is really just a housekeeping item for this bylaw. There are no proposed changes to the fee structure. The change being proposed is because of the final rollout to the property designated in the properties designated in the bylaw for condominiums, new residential, new multi-residential, and cooperative homes. Now that they have all been offered the green bin service, we are just recommending that that service level of 2 bags per residential unit per week go down to 1 bag per residential per week. This has been the practice for the entire rollout of the program, and now we're just coming back to say that the full rollout is complete and this administration change should be made.
Thank you. Questions from members of the committee? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, we've already implemented this then with the multi-residential, the cooperative homes, the new multi-residential, this whole class. We've already. How long have we been operating at this level? I guess. And is there a significant change to our revenue associated with that? I guess if they're allowed 2 bags, it's 2 bags before we start charging. Correct?
There are no fee increases being proposed, and this has been the practice since we started the rollout to the multi-res properties. I'm going to say multi-res, but all of those classifications to the cooperative houses, new multi-residential, and condominiums, it's just been the common practice that when we've sent them a notification that based on the number of units, they would be eligible for the green bin program, we let them know at that point, now that they've reached that eligibility to be included for that service, they get reduced to 1 bag per residential unit if they've opted in for the garbage service with the city. So there are no changes proposed, and we haven't heard any negative feedback when we've rolled this out already, so I don't expect there to be anything additional coming back.
I had Councillor Hutchison next, then Councillor Neal.
Thank you. Let me just point out that although I work for a cooperative, there's no conflict, or there is an excusable conflict because it's general city policy and everybody produces garbage and has it picked up. So everybody belongs in the same general category. So you can't have a conflict under those circumstances. So I'm fine with that general intent. I got a couple of questions I just wanted to be clear about. The bylaw, it differentiates this different types of dwelling that you just mentioned a couple of times there. But I'm not quite sure. It seems to me the differentiation between types of dwellings should be by size of buildings and configuration, not simply the type. And because some condominiums, I can think of at least a couple, are townhouses. And it doesn't seem to me that they're costing the city any more to pick up than any other single-family dwelling or duplex and I think before, when we first started this, it was low rises, like 6 or lower units. But the differentiation is made on type of building or category. So I've never understood that. And it's not explicit in the bylaw, it seems to me, as to why this differentiation is made. I'm not arguing that it isn't harder to pick up from an apartment-style condominium or a multi-res, and all the problems go into the owners and tenants who care about these things, and the city, right? There's no doubt that probably they're more difficult, right? Because of mixed waste and loss of revenues and all kinds of things. But when they are townhouses, it seems to, which I think residential houses are charged out at $39.50 per door, something like that. Maybe it's 42 now, but it's in that neighborhood. Is that correct?
I would need to check that before
Okay.
I would confirm.
Okay, so the difference is about $12 or something like that, okay? So $11. So I just wanted to raise that, and that the bylaw doesn't give to me, sound basis for why these categories are singled out. It just says, we're doing it, okay? And I've never understood that. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents in about that. And, but as for cutting it for 2 bags to 1 bag because of the green bin offer, that's perfectly fine by me. I just think it's a weakness in the bylaw.
So if I could, we've heard the comment, and at some point in time, this bylaw will be revisited again, and we will make a note of it, and possibly that can be clarified at that point in time, if that was suffice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on my list is Councillor Neal.
Yes. So everybody's been notified that they are eligible for recycling. If they choose, are there some property owners, I'm sure there are, that choose not to avail themselves of that? But this will formalize the reduction from 2 bags to 1 bag. Is that correct?
That's correct, and I just want to clarify that you said recycling, but I'm going to assume that you meant green bin service? Okay.
I meant both.
And that's correct. So if all of these property classes have been offered green bin service, and as such, they've already been notified that they will go down from 2 bags per residential unit per week to 1 bag, or not bag, sorry, yes, bag. And if they choose not to have a green bin program at their property, they still go down to 1 bag per residential per week.
Good. I know, just from walking my dog to the dog park on pickup day, there are a couple of apartments, 4-story walk-ups on Frontenac Street. I believe they both hire the city to pick up their surplus bags. At least I know that after the household pickup has taken place, another city truck will come along and there'll be a little bundle of bags, definitely more than even a 2-bag limit per unit. Are they commercially contracting with the city for those pickups? I'm sorry, I should have asked that question before I got here.
So the response to that is no, and if possible, so if we could have an offline discussion about this afterwards, I would appreciate that.
That would be great, because one of the owners is very active in the Green Party, and he has all kinds of bins. So clearly, he's recycling. And the other commercial rental place has a pretty good little mountain of bags. And I know that the city second truck that comes around to pick up from apartments does that. I'll get the numbers and share that information with you.
Thank you. Councillor Candid.
Thank you, through you. Two questions, just for my own comprehension. It would appear to me, and I could be wrong, I'm assuming that I am, that it would be easier to pick up garbage in one location for many units than it would be to go driving around a neighborhood for, say, 182 units. So why is there a premium charged to the one-stop shop versus the larger area? And the second question I had was, why does it seem, I mean, I could be interpreting this the wrong way, as though the downtown business improvement area or the special collection area, why is it just that area? Like, why would it be different for someone in my district compared to someone downtown? Because it's kind of the same thing, unless I'm interpreting it incorrectly.
Primarily, the city has collected or been responsible for the collection of residential waste. And so the businesses in that defined BIA or special collection area have been removed from the regular solid waste management bylaw for those fees. So the way that the taxes would work is that they are not charged the collection fee, so they actually have to opt in for the service. So just like the condominiums, the cooperative housing, the new multi-residential and the multi-residential, they have to opt in for service. They are not automatically eligible for service. They have to express that interest to us because the whole fee that a regular household would be paying is not on their taxes. So even though they might be charged a general fee for diversion, they are not paying for collection. And that's what the levying of these special fees is for. So it's been defined that we will only be collecting from the commercial businesses in that defined area if they opt in.
So in other words, you're paying for it, if you opt in, you're paying for it either way, whether it's in your taxes or in this way. It's just a different way of charging somebody. It's either through your taxes or you opt in this way. Right, okay. So they're not being charged
That's
extra,
correct.
it's just a different way to be charged. Okay.
Councillor Allen.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, so, thank you. We're at that point. The recommendation that a bylaw be presented to amend City Council Bylaw 2005-260, as stated there, as amended to provide a consistent level of service to those properties identified in the bylaw. So moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by...
Before it goes on the floor, we should see if there's any public comments.
Oh, we are jumping the gun. Did you have member of the public please come forward and ask your question or make your comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had two questions. One of them was pertaining to the situation where you have a house that's been converted into a number of different units of apartments. And I live in a house like that myself. Do the people who are picking up the garbage know that? Do they know that there are, say, 3 units in that building so that they could legally pick up, without extra charges, 3 bags from that location, one corresponding to each unit in the building? That's the first question. And the second question is related to something that Councillor Neal just mentioned. He was describing the situation in his district where there are a couple of 4-story walk-up apartment buildings and I know those myself, I walk by there regularly, where one of them does recycle actively. They have the large bins in front, and one of them does not. So my point there would be that if you're running a large apartment building like that, it would seem that the city should be interested in almost requiring a level of recycling to take place in that unit. It's just a comment rather than a question. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have staff respond.
So the answer to your first question is yes, we are notified. So if a building is converted from one residential unit and split into 4, we do get notification from taxation that it's been converted. And in that case, the level of service would be increased to meet the needs of each residential unit.
I'll just comment that one of the ways we identified all kinds of illegal suites was when we went from 2 to 1 bag limit, and there were all kinds of, in the core of the city, illegal secondary suites that suddenly were complaining about not having the pickup that they used to have. So.
Thank you. Okay, so the recommendation's been moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Neal. Any discussion on the recommendation? No? Just sidebar discussion? Is that
I was actually trying to ask him whether his answer, one of his questions had been answered.
Oh, okay.
2 different questions.
Well, if there's any unanswered questions, now is the time before we approve the recommendation. Perhaps the councillor could, if not, if you're ready.
Yeah, Councillor Hutchison was just asking how, my question was why they're being charged extra, but as it turns out, they're not being charged extra because originally they weren't being charged in their property tax. When somebody opts in, then they're being charged, but it's not built into their property tax. So they're actually, I thought they were being charged extra, but they're not really being charged extra. They're actually just getting charged the first time.
Yeah, they're paying a levy instead of a tax, correct? They're paying a levy instead of a tax, like most residents.
That's correct.
Yeah. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other,
Right.
I think.
Okay, so that's clarified. Seeing no other discussion, we'll vote on the recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now the second item of business, in a similar vein. Amendments to the solid waste management bylaw, and the recommendation that the EITP committee recommend to council that a bylaw be presented to amend City of Kingston bylaw 2014-5, a bylaw to provide for and regulate a solid waste management system for the Corporation of City of Kingston as amended as per Exhibit A in EITP Committee Report 16-014. And I guess you would like to say something about this?
This bylaw has been in operation for over 2 years now, and through using this bylaw, we've identified some amendments that we think need to be clarified or added to the bylaw. So just a couple of the biggest ones that we're clarifying would be the definition of eligible properties. So for the past year or beyond, I've had questions about daycares and home occupations and how we treat them when they are at a residential property. And I didn't really have a great answer for how we're treating them. And so going back to amend this bylaw, I thought that it was prudent to clearly identify those in the bylaw. So we recognize that it wasn't a level of service for daycares and home occupations operating within a home were not clearly identified. So I've added those to be clarified that, for example, if you're a hairdresser and you're operating out of your home and you're still considered a residential property class and you have a home and you have people living in your home, you would be eligible for collection, but the level of service would remain the same. You would get 1 bag per week, 1 green bin, and unlimited recycling. So we're not saying, it's not to be interpreted that we're going to give that hairdresser an extra bag per week. But what we are saying is that if they chose to put bag tags on the extra bags of garbage, we would pick it up. And that's the uncertainty that those are the kinds of questions that we would receive is, should we or shouldn't we be picking those up? And another question would be around cardboard boxes. So if somebody, again, if it was a hairdresser in a home and there were boxes out for recycling collection and they clearly had a business label on them, should we or shouldn't we be taking them? Because other businesses in the city, a proper commercial business that is recognized as a commercial business under MPACT is not receiving any level of service from us unless they're opting in and they're in that special collection or BIA area. But the practical part of collection is that we can't tell. So when we pull up to a household, unless there's a sign, we can't really tell if there's a hairdresser in that home, so we're probably collecting the waste anyway. That's the truthful part of it, because we can't tell. The bags are black, they're cardboard boxes. So we're trying to clarify here for when we're getting calls from people and for the collectors on the streets that these would be eligible and considered eligible properties and functions at a residential property class. And a second thing is places of worship. So getting questions around what's our level of service if there's a residential unit within the place of worship. That wasn't clearly identified in the bylaw. And so this bylaw is identifying that if there was a residential unit within the place of worship, the residential unit would get 1 bag and the place of worship would get 1 bag. They'd only have 1 green bin and unlimited recycling. So just clarifying that for communication purposes and for the collectors. The additional clauses that have been added are for the special collection area. So the Keep It Clean committee that we have, that is comprised of staff members, members of downtown Kingston. We know that from our bylaw enforcement team at the city, the way that the current bylaw is worded, they have a hard time enforcing businesses that are placing waste out that are getting third-party collection. So the clauses that we're asking for would prohibit the setting out of waste in the special collection area between 9:30 and 4:30 p.m. every day. And we're hoping that this will help with that enforcement. So some of those businesses that are placing waste out for collection and it's sitting there for a couple of days, the bylaw enforcement team is going to be able to do what they need to do. And the other amendments are really administrative in nature and housekeeping.
Okay, so we'll go to committee for questions. Senator Hutchison?
Okay, I do have a question. But first let me say I am so happy this is happening. If you can clean up that mess at the Wellington and Princess Street, you get a star, at least one. It's been going on for years. So, you know what I'm talking about. Poor old property standards was going crazy. So anyway, my question actually is a bit of a gloss on what you said earlier about hairdressers. Because you did mention daycares, I think, and they're allowed to put out 2 unbagged bags of garbage and 2 green bins weekly. Are they? It's not to be interpreted that they can do that. Okay, not to be interpreted that they can do that. Okay. All right, so they're 1-on-1 as well. Okay.
That's correct.
I was going to say I didn't object. So everyone would open a daycare, right? Yeah. A 1-child, 2-child daycare, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I got that clarified. I didn't read it properly. Thanks.
Councillor Allen?
This home occupation conversation is sort of stems and the special collection area and all this management around third-party pickup, opting in for commercial properties, all of that. Why is it that we aren't in the commercial collection business on a larger scale? I think a lot of community members voice frustration at the lack of recycling facilities they find in commercial locations because they're not required to do that. And I just wanted some clarity as to why it's different rules, harder rules for our residents than it is for our businesses almost. Or that's what it seems like to folks who are going into different kinds of coffee shops or whatever.
I'll allow, it's a little bit outside the scope of this bylaw, but I'll allow the question.
So I think your question is about why we're not servicing other commercial businesses in the entire city wide. Is that correct? It's not something that we have provided. Garbage is very expensive. The collection of garbage is very expensive. The industry is well serviced by third-party contractors. I'm not using that as an excuse to not do that, but it's not something that a lot of municipalities our size do. They don't take on collecting commercial waste. It would mean a much larger business unit than what we currently manage, and it has historically been out of the scope of work that the solid waste division has covered.
Just a quick follow-up, and I think that makes sense, especially if it's expensive, and it is if there isn't an opportunity in additional diversion or providing diversion services for commercial organizations that aren't serviced well by third parties when it comes to diversion, and there may be an opportunity for us to move into that sector or help supply willing organizations with diversion opportunities. This might be getting out of the scope of this discussion, but I'd be interested to know that in the future.
Yes, Councillor Shell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, thanks for the reply to the church. In my district, I didn't have an answer to the church about the green bin program. So this has been a revelation to me, a good one. And I'll just note that little theater company that I'm with, we pay $200 a month for a bin because it's considered commercial. And we're charging $50 for companies in town. The cost for commercial garbage is just unbelievable, but it also involves an incredible infrastructure that the city doesn't have. So I think as council, we would have to ask for a total cost analysis of really expanding, because garbage is incredibly expensive. Anyway, I'm glad to see this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Hutchison.
Just to follow up on those questions, you presented on the new Waste Diversion Act, or whatever the name of it is. Is that, I think part of what I got from your rather comprehensive review of that night is that this is going to change. That the province wants commercial to be picked up, and it's whoever's I can't remember the name of the organization now because its name changed, and you can tell me. But I just want to be sure that my impression is correct, that this is what Councillor Allen was talking about, is this is going to change, and we're just not sure how, right? Okay.
That's correct, and so the Waste Free Ontario Act has been passed, and it is moving forward, and I believe that the word that you're looking for is producer responsibility, and absolutely it is shifting to producer responsibility for diversion. So garbage, as far as I know, is still going to be our responsibility because it's the very expensive piece of the puzzle, but certainly recycling and other diversion programs will be shifting.
Thank you. I have a question. In the options discussion portion, page 17 of the package, letter G, it has to do with the liners, the green bin liners. So, so it's only been 2 years that we've been operating under this structure, and my understanding is the liners were not permitted because of the, I guess, the licensing agreement that we had. Is that, so now that's changed and liners are permitted? Is that what's happened?
That's correct. So actually, the processing contractor is the same. It has been the same, but at the startup of the program, it was decided at that time that we would just be permitting paper compostable liners. And then when we went out with another request for proposal, so another RFP process, we asked for an option for plastic compostable liners to be included as well, and the processor was able to accommodate that at that time for quite a low cost. And our hope was that that would increase participation in the program.
Right. For a family, the most cost-effective way would still be to use newspaper and make a homemade liner, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to see that. I just have a question about what what we're doing to get the word out to the citizens about that aspect, because I know in my district people often mention to me that they don't understand why compostable liners were not permitted. So now there's a reversal in policy. So what are we doing for publicity?
So we did a number of things in 2014 to promote it. I can't offhand remember all of the things, but it was promoted, and in fact, most of the people, if people were coming into Carc, we were letting them know that they were permitted now, and the response that we got from most people was, we already thought that those were allowed. We got other feedback of people thinking that it was great. We did some mail-outs for people to test out some of those plastic compostable liners. It's online that you can use them. If people come to pick up their new green bin, whether they've moved to a new house or they're new to the city, we let them know that that's permitted.
Okay, that's great. I guess I'll do my part to spread the word as best I can. I guess people haven't been paying attention. The other question that I often get, and we've had it here before, is the apartment-sized green bins that you could have like under your sink or in an apartment where you don't, other than the full-size green bins. We've talked about that before. Still no chance of getting apartment-sized green bins as an option for collection at the curb, I mean?
For apartment-sized green bins, are you talking about a container that they would have in unit and then take out to the curb?
It would be for, I guess, the 6 units or less type density, where people, they live in an apartment, but they would like to have individual green bins, but there's actually only one large green bin at the front of the building, and everyone has to use it together. So you have to carry your compost down possibly 2 flights of stairs, and it just doesn't, it doesn't, I noticed when I lived in that situation, the people on the top floor were never doing it.
Okay.
We did it, but we were on the ground floor. So I was just saying, it was often mentioned that the apartment-sized green bin would make it better for everyone, but then you'd have 6 little green bins in a 6-unit place, so that's probably not cost-effective either.
It's not something that we're currently looking at, but it is something that we could keep in mind.
It would make a big difference with the Queen's population, I think, because that's a big barrier for them. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? So who wants to move the recommendation? Oh, members of the public. Yes. Sorry, I didn't see your hand, Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to start by praising the extensive work on the report. I think it's really detailed and very good responses to questions by staff as well. They really know what they're doing on this, so I want that to be recognized. Just a couple of points. I did speak with Ms. Roberts prior to the meeting about a couple of my ideas, and I know that it's been talked about in this committee and elsewhere, but I guess looking at areas of the city where there's a lot of pedestrian and cyclist traffic, thinking, say, Princess Street from, say, Division up to the Kingston Center, there are no large bins where people can put recyclable material in that entire stretch. In contrast to downtown, where there's one every block or two. And you notice the difference if you're walking around. There's more garbage in the Williamsville stretch that people maybe they could be recycling, or they're not willing to take it home, right? So I think that's one area that we have chance for improvement on. The other one is, I know Councillor Neal's been emphasizing this for some time, is the parks. You often have people gathering for picnics, or they're playing sports or other activities, and they'll leave garbage behind, a lot of it that could be recycled if there was an actual facility there. And I think the argument that has been advanced by staff is that it's difficult for vehicles to get into certain parks. And I can understand that, but I think there's still a chance to improve there. Then my final point would be just sort of looking at the differences between Kingston and certain comparator cities. I'm somebody who's quite observant. When I travel, I see what other people are doing, other cities are doing, say for traffic safety and this sort of thing. And then, like just in Kingston itself, in St. Lawrence College, they have their bins set up so that they're actually asking you a question to actually get you to think about whether you should be recycling it in A, B, or C, or it should be going into landfill. So I think that's rather clever. They have probably a higher diversion of recyclable material into the correct categories there than we're currently having. And the City of Toronto also does this. They're getting you to think about your actual disposal category. I think it's a bit more effective than we're doing right now. So I think maybe just in general, on the question of comparator cities, we are aiming to be Canada's most sustainable city, and I think that we do many things very well. But I do believe that there's a chance for us to improve further. So thank you.
So I heard sort of two questions and a comment. So the first two questions I will attempt to answer because I think they're a little bit outside of the solid waste responsibility. So the first one, the Williamsville area or the roads area, we continue to look at that whenever we upgrade streets. So the last part of the big dig that was just done, I think people will notice a significant improvement there. We will continue on with that. I think the part of Williamsville that was rebuilt, we did that. So that happens as the roads are rebuilt, and then in addition, there is some budget money every year that we look at making these available. So it's a continuous process that we work on. In the parks area, that question actually came up at an EITP meeting not too long ago. It might have been Councillor Hutchinson that brought it up. I have talked with Ms. Hurdle about that. Parks is within her area, and I know herself and Damon are working on solutions for that because I think we heard the comment and realized it's an area that we can improve on, and we are looking at that. And the third one is a comment that we will take into consideration. Thank you.
Oh, sparked another question from committee member, Councillor Neal.
Just a thank you, but a question why it was only temporary. At the Kids Try, the city put out quite a few blue bins, like the big blue barrels, and a number of the larger garbage barrels. And it's the first event where we haven't had overflowing garbage on Monday and needing to call for a special pickup. It really worked well. But it would be nice if that was not just like putting extra ones out for special events like that make perfect sense. But we should have some permanent recycling barrels or bins at all of our major parks. And I know I've spoken to you kind of on the side in the past about that. Whatever Public Works can do would be good. Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess it's time to look at the recommendation. Oh, I've already read it. I need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Camden. Any debate on the recommendation? Okay, well, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any motions, Mr. Clerk?
No, there are not.
And no notices of motion. Other business, there was nothing mentioned. So I guess we're on to the next meeting, which is in August. So that's 4 weeks from today, I think, August 2nd.
If I can give my regrets, I'll be out of town on that date.
Okay, so if one or two if anyone else is going to be traveling or not able to make that meeting, make sure Derek knows in advance so we know about quorum. With that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Camden, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.